Welcome to Crime Beat, I'm Anthony Robart. Tonight, we meet a family fighting for accountability after a police wellness check turns deadly.
2:30 in the morning, we get a big bang knock on our door. Jump out of bed, look out, you see a police car.
Somebody was obsessed with her. Chantal was very scared.
I had texted her, I said, Chantal, the police just left my house. I'm worried about you.
When he attended the scene, the woman in question just opened the door, went after the officer with a knife in her hand.
Her neighbors just tell a different story.
We know from the witnesses and from him, they looked all over the place for the knife.
I don't understand how someone dies during a wellness check. I'm pissed, I'm outraged.
I'm angry, I'm furious, I'm so disgusted with the system. I don't have faith in that system.
Why should we even answer the door for a wellness check? How in the hell did that happen?
It just breaks my heart to hear a little girl talking like this. My mommy, they shot my mommy.
And now, remember her name, Chantel Moore.
She always had a smile on her face. The most beautiful smile you ever seen. My name's Tobias Watts. I've been friends with Chantal for 10 years. She just loved being around people. She was always so happy.
Me and Chantal have been in each other's lives since we were little girls. My name is Savannah McCarthy. Our mothers are first cousins. We were like sisters, yes.
My name is Martha Martin. I am the mother of Chantel Moore, and I come from Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations. I live here in Edmundston, New Brunswick. She had such a bubbly personality, and when she walked into a room, you just knew her presence was there. She had a way of lighting up the room.
She just moved from a smaller place to a bigger place. Probably the last time I FaceTimed with her was when she was showing me her new apartment. Her last words to me were, "Good night, Grandma, I love you."
On the night she had actually stayed in her apartment on June 3rd, she wanted to have a couple of drinks. So she had come over just before her and her friends went over to the house, and you know, she smiled, laughed, getting into her friend's car. She says, "Okay, see you tomorrow, Mom," and that was the last time I ever seen her.
The neighbors, I had read in some of the news articles, they had said that she had been a little bit loud, and then she comes down and she apologized, and she had said she had sent her friends home.
At 2:30 in the morning, we get a big bang knock on our door. And the way our house is, like, our room is right above our living room. So for us to hear the big bang, it had to be loud. So, like, jump out of bed, look out, you see a police car. So you come running down the stairs so he doesn't wake up the whole house. So I open the door at 2:30 in the morning, and he says that he's concerned.
She got up, she went downstairs to answer the door, and there's police officers standing at her door and said they were concerned about Chantal and they wanted to talk to Chantal, and Martha said she doesn't live here anymore. She moved to her new apartment. She must have gave him the address.
The police, they had received a phone call from her ex-boyfriend in Montreal saying that there was concern about somebody stalking my daughter or somebody possibly being in her house. There was concern is what they told me, for her safety, that they were going to check on her. Like they thought that she was in danger.
A friend who was with Chantel that night said Ms. Moore had told her that someone had been following her and harassing her. She was never told who it was.
So after the cop leaves, I go upstairs, grab my phone, and I open it, and I see the messages. This was sent from her ex-boyfriend in Montreal. So they weren't really sure if somebody had hacked into her phone, or they thought that it was unusual because it didn't sound like it was my daughter.
Chantel's ex was a man named Jonathan Brunette. Investigators say he told them, quote, he thought initially that Ms. Moore might have been trying to manipulate him into getting back together. However, due to the content and tone of the messages, he became concerned enough to call 911.
The best part is I've been following her from work for days, her using the BMO Bank free Wi-Fi. So somebody had known her work schedule when she was leaving that was stated in these text messages. And then it goes on to say, stating that it doesn't matter. What matters is I want her and she wants you. And I want to know what you did to make her want you, because I will force her to want me. And then he replies, I'm gonna repeat one last time, you sick rapist. Who that F are you?
When I saw the screenshots, I feel like somebody was obsessed with her. I believe that Chantal was very scared.
Well, after I had received the message from her ex-boyfriend in Montreal, I had texted her. I said, Chantal, the police just left my house. I'm worried about you. So there, you see at 2:33, it says, I said, Chantal, what's going on? I messaged her again. I said, they're going to your place to check on you. Are you okay? And there was no response.
Coming up, the terrifying scene that unfolds when police arrive at Chantel's apartment. Chantel Moore's ex-boyfriend has called police, worried for her safety. This after receiving a series of strange messages from her phone. Concerned that Chantel may have a stalker and may be in danger, an officer has arrived at her apartment to perform a wellness check. We now return to Remember Her Name, Chantel Moore.
At 2:30 in the morning, he's pounding on her window at the apartment. She's single, she's alone. She'd been drinking a lot. That was part of the evidence. And it took him quite a while to wake her up. He could see her sleeping on the couch. Why couldn't he just leave her? And there's no lights at the porch. So he shines his flashlight in his face so that she could see that he's wearing a ball cap or something as part of their uniform. He said she gets up from the couch, goes, like, it's all in one area. He goes to the kitchen and he notices she's got something metallic in her hands. And so she's coming towards the door. So he said he backs up 6 or 7 steps. And she comes out of the door with a knife over her head with this little steak knife. Remember that little? And, he says she just keeps on coming at him.
He probably scared the shit out of her, but would she come out with a knife? I don't think so.
And he's yelling in French, drop the knife. She's not French. She doesn't speak French. So how does she understand what he's saying to her? He had met her before, so he knew she was an English-speaking person. And so he's yelling at her in French to drop the knife, and apparently there was another officer below who heard that.
Witness 10 said, the next thing he heard is Officer 1 saying, Elle a un couteau. Officer 2 said, quote, he heard Officer 1 yell twice, drop le couteau.
So she's coming at him, And he shoots her once. I guess she's still coming at him. He didn't really say. He shoots her 4 times. 4 times. And one of the residents living in the apartment building.
He was outside having a cigarette on his balcony. He said it was like this, one after the other. That's how they shot her. He said they were trying to cover it up. And they kept telling him to go inside. He said, I don't smoke inside, sir. He said, I smoke on my balcony. He said her last words he heard from her was, I'm hurt.
And at 3 o'clock, my partner arrived to go and check on her at 3 in the morning, and at this time she was already dead. And then at 4:19, I had another knock on the door, which would be the final knock where they tell me that she was shot and killed. I didn't want to believe it. I had to call my daughter. I asked her if it was true, and she said, Mom, she's gone.
Her mother called me. And then the first thing I did was phone my friend Savannah in Iqaluit and told her.
And I didn't believe it.
Police in New Brunswick are pushing for an independent investigation after a 26-year-old Indigenous woman from British Columbia was shot and killed by officers. Officers say she charged at them with a knife.
When he attended the scene, for a reason unknown to us right now, the woman in question just opened the door and attacked the officer, went after the officer with a knife in her hand. So the officer had no choice to back up and to use his firearm to protect himself.
What was surprising to me was the evidence around the knife. So this is, the police officer always talks about the knife, and that this is why he shot at her, because she was coming at him with a knife.
EMT 2 said at the scene he never saw any knife or firearm, nor did he see anything in the patient's hands. Officer 2 saw the 4 shell casings and a bullet on the balcony. He did not see any knife.
They looked in the boxes that were on her porch, which were empty boxes because she had just moved in. Her neighbors just tell a different story.
He said there was 3 police officers. There was one on the ground, flashlight flashing around. There was one up by her body and one on, there's a stairway to go up. He said they couldn't find a knife.
Honestly, I don't think she would have had a knife in her hand. Why were they having such a hard time finding it afterwards?
And then miraculously, this knife showed up.
And so there were some cardboard boxes on the ground, and they found a knife under the cardboard.
The seized knife was a Cuisinart brand steak knife. 2 knives were said to be missing from a knife set found inside Chantel's apartment.
So, but they say, oh, well, but because the knife was right beside her or close to her, they assume that she was holding a knife. We don't know that. Nobody knows that.
After the break, Chantel Moore's grieving relatives will travel to New Brunswick from BC and find new evidence that leads to more questions. That's after the break. "26-year-old Chantel Moore has been shot and killed by a police officer, but Chantel's family questions his use of deadly force during a wellness check and question whether Chantel had a knife. Now back to remember her name, Chantel Moore.
She just had the biggest smile on her face and she come running to me. Grandma! It was always, that's how she was every time she seen me. My name is Grace Frank Chantal. She's my granddaughter. Her mother is my daughter. This is all I have left of her precious memories. She was born in Edmundston, New Brunswick. Chantal came back to BC. I believe she was 5 years old.
Martha moved back to her hometown in BC with her young daughter Chantel. After years of trying to make it work as a single mother, Chantel ended up in foster care and was then adopted.
She had a negative experience with people that were supposed to protect her. She was put in a home where she ended up facing being abused. She was raped there. Oh. She was raped by a young kid.
I cried. I asked how they could do that because I myself know the system. I've been there, put in a home.
When you're dealing with the Ministry of Child Services, is always, it seems like it's happening a lot with Indigenous single parents.
And you got her out at 14?
Yeah.
She immediately gained friends where my mom and I were living at that time. And then after leaving, she lived on her own, and, you know, she became pregnant with her daughter.
She's named after me. I was there when Gracie was born, and she looks up at me and she says, "Grandma, her name is Gracie." And I was like, "Ah." I cried, and we got to hold the baby, and
she was a really good mom. She was working to provide for her. Like, yes, at first, you know, she had a little bit of a struggle, and then she got up on her feet. She took some courses. She got a job. She was working full time, and, you know, her priority was always her daughter. I moved back to New Brunswick, and during the first part of the year that I was here talking with my daughter, and I'd went back for a visit, and she was kind of struggling. Some of the struggles being a single parent, you know, financially sometimes can be a little bit hard on a single mother. To avoid having her daughter possibly taken by the ministry, we didn't want to see my daughter go through what I went through with the ministry. So we had asked her, you know, until you get back on your feet, do you want me to take Gracie? So we had taken Gracie back to New Brunswick with me.
after dinners when she told me she was thinking about moving to New Brunswick.
She wanted to go back to school, and she just wanted to be in her daughter's life. Gracie was the ultimate for her.
And she asked if I could help her to get down there, so did everything we could.
So this one was my daughter, and this is Miss Gracie.
Wow.
So when Chantal came back to New Brunswick, things were really turning around for her.
She was working on taking Gracie back.
When I see the camera, I want to show the humans.
She got this 2-bedroom place, and the other room was gonna be Gracie's room.
You know, she decided that she wanted to become an engineer. She said, I want to be an engineer, Mom, and I want to take over New York. And that's exactly what she said. And I know if she was still here, that's exactly what she would still be working towards.
You know, she had some dreams, and she was getting to them.
And it didn't last very long for her. All her dreams were shattered in a matter of moments.
It's been 1 day since Chantel Moore was shot and killed by Edmundston police inside her home, and a growing chorus of people are chanting for justice. The Nachalnith Tribal Council is calling for an immediate independent investigation to provide just that.
I don't understand how someone dies during a wellness check. When I first saw the report, I thought it was some morbid joke. And you look at it and you say, yes, there'll be an independent investigation, but frankly, along with many Canadians, Indigenous peoples living in Canada, politicians, I'm pissed, I'm outraged.
The Assembly of First Nations is calling for an impartial third-party investigation into why lethal force was used and whether race was a factor. There's an online petition calling for the officer to be charged with murder.
Well, I'm hoping that there's going to be charges laid. You know, do you let somebody that's able to just kill somebody and let them walk around like nothing happened? I don't think that's fair.
Edmundston police have handed the investigation off to Quebec's police watchdog.
As the investigation got underway, the family of Chantel Moore traveled to New Brunswick from British Columbia to gather their own intelligence as to what happened that fateful night.
Boy, the stories that we got from our own family that went down to New Brunswick, and it's different than what's being reported by the investigation. My name is Moses Martin, and I'm currently the elected chief of Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations. Chantel, in that traditional way, I was her grandfather.
There was a lot of things that didn't add up.
Until we went to her apartment building. Every one of us went there. And right away, the guy that lives, their apartment is from here to where he's standing. That's probably 15 feet. He came down to tell us right away. We recorded him.
Maniac banging on their doors and windows. So she probably did come out with a knife. Poor girl. But she didn't deserve to die. That way after he shot her once, and then another 4 times.
We went upstairs and Carl showed us the blood on the balcony. He said, look, he said they painted it up right away.
We reached out to this neighbor, who many of the family members know only as Carl, and who appears to be referred to as Witness 11 by investigators, but he did not respond to our request for an interview.
The only time we viewed her body was at the funeral home. So from there we started to get very suspicious. My daughter wanted to put moccasins on her. They were putting the moccasins on her and they noticed something wrong with her leg.
Myself, my mother, and my stepmother had decided that we were going to examine my daughter ourselves. We brought my daughter to BC after we had had the service here in New Brunswick. We had tried to find a pathologist to see what he could find. There was not a pathologist that would examine her because she was embalmed, and any evidence that would have been there was basically erased. So the funeral home director at Yates and Nanaimo had agreed to accommodate us.
I had no idea that I would ever be taking pictures of my granddaughter's body.
You know, seeing the bruising on her body, seeing her leg, when we pick up her leg.
The funeral guy said it's broken, and it just swung. It was broken right off. He said it doesn't look like it's attached at all. He said the only thing that's holding it together is the skin. My daughter was asking questions because she had a lot of they looked like bruises around her waist and on the inside of her legs. And
While an autopsy was performed by a doctor on June 5th prior to Chantel's body being moved to BC, we cannot confirm what was in the original report, as it has not been made public.
You could see, you know, when we had seen the first 2 bullet holes in the front chest, we thought after that maybe it went through, so by doing so, the funeral director had lifted my daughter so we could examine the back, but the 3 gunshot wounds in the back were not even close to the ones that were in the front.
Even though Chantel's family recorded the neighbor saying he heard 5 shots, none of the witnesses told investigators they heard more than 4 shots, and only 4 shell casings were found and 4 bullets recovered.
Well, the official report is saying that she was shot 4 times, but I mean there may be entrance and exit wounds, right?
Yeah.
Is it possible that the ones in the back were through?
No, we checked that. Seeing the 2 that she had right here did not match those ones in the back.
You can't help but feel angry because they'd used so much force. You know, she didn't need to lose her life. You know, she should still be here with her daughter. You know, and
he's not telling the truth.
The cop?
Yeah. By what we saw on my granddaughter's body, we know that he's lying, he's not telling the truth.
Coming up, local authorities have handed over the case to Quebec's police watchdog, the BEI, to investigate. Will there be justice for Chantel? Chantel Moore's family is told whether or not charges will be laid against the cop who shot her. We now return to remember her name, Chantel Moore.
They walked in silence through the streets of the Madawaska-Maliseet First Nation into Edmundston, slowly to try and heal the pain caused by loss.
Her favorite saying was, "Stay golden, peeps." That's why we chose to wear yellow.
We've been hurt many times. How can we ever trust any police force? Why should we even answer the door for a wellness check? How in the hell did that happen?
How can we heal? How can we heal the rift between you and us? It was when they took our children from their homes and brought them to residential schools. It was the police that did that.
There have been 2 deadly police shootings of Indigenous people in New Brunswick in the span of 8 days. Rodney Levi was fatally shot on Friday. Chantel Moore was killed in the early hours of June 4th.
Since this incident with my granddaughter Chantal and our relative Julian Jones being shot by police, and my niece Melinda being shot by police, is still in the hospital.
3 people from the same band in 1 year, it's too much. And I was related to all of them too, so.
I'm angry, I'm furious, I'm so disgusted with the system. I don't have faith in that system.
Do we have systemic racism in our country? Yes, we do.
I don't believe that they would have handled the situation the same way if she was white.
We've survived all these smallpox epidemic and residential schools, and with that horrible story of those 215 bodies that were recently found in Kamloops, and that's the story that we've been telling ever since. And now we're always asked to prove it, right? And yeah, now it's being proven. There has to be something done, and to place more value in in Indigenous lives.
It's been 1 year since Chantel Moore, a 26-year-old Indigenous woman from Vancouver Island, was shot by police in New Brunswick.
I can't even believe it's been a year because it feels like it just happened.
A police watchdog investigation into Moore's death wrapped in December, finalized in the province in the months since. Still, details aren't out.
Jeremy's son is the police officer that shot my granddaughter.
The officer has never been identified by the police, but the lawyer for the family has identified the officer as Jeremy's son.
The little bit that I know about the officer that shot and killed my daughter is, I think 2 or 3 weeks after my daughter had passed, he was back on duty, not on patrol, but on desk duty, I believe.
It's been over a year since Chantel Moore was shot and killed by Edmundston police during a wellness check. And on Monday, following a report from Quebec's independent police watchdog, the Crown cleared the officer of any wrongdoing, saying his use of force was justified.
The mother of an Indigenous woman killed by a police officer in New Brunswick during a wellness check says she is disappointed but not surprised the officer will not be criminally charged.
We've had enough. We've had enough of injustice. We've had enough of being treated like crap.
No justice, no peace.
Unfortunately, because she's not here to defend herself, we have to be the voice and try to advocate for her so that justice is served. But we will never know, fully what happened that night.
He does admit that he made a mistake in moving to the left and getting cornered. There could have been different circumstances, is what he says in his testimony. So even with all of that, they still find him not guilty. They're not going to charge him, because under the Police Act, yes, he committed a homicide, but he had, the Police Act gives all the reasons why a police officer can be found non-culpable, or whatever those words are.
So they're claiming justifiable force.
Yeah, that he was justified.
These incidents occur in very dynamic circumstances and happen often very quickly. My name is Tom Stamatakis. I'm the president of the Canadian Police Association. We advocate on behalf of frontline police officers across the country. He's in a confined space. He tries to create some distance. It didn't sound like there was any room to create any more distance. Ms. Moore was advancing with the knife, and so he made a decision to defend himself with his firearm.
And so this man, this police officer, who trains other officers in de-escalation, instead of moving to the right and going down the stairs, he went to the left and got himself pinned on a balcony so that he can't move.
In my policing career, I was a use of force instructor.
Who are you? Constable Baker. Oh, knife, 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 knife. Go away. Rob, put down the knife, please. Go away. Rob.
And I can talk at length about the challenge of trying to shoot someone in an arm or a leg in a dynamic situation while the person is moving. That's not easy.
She's like 5 foot, maybe 5'1" or 2, 100 pounds. And then there's this tall police officer, well built, over 6 foot. And, and he can't quell her. He can't stop her. He doesn't have a taser, believe this or not. There's one taser in their whole police station that one person gets per shift. So he didn't have a taser. And he had a baton, so why couldn't he use the baton and knock the knife out of her hand?
We have outreach teams where these are teams of health workers with a police officer embedded in the team. Yeah, if you had those resources, that's what I would want to respond with. What I hear is, we need body cameras. No, we need more training. No, we want more police officers on the street. I mean, it's a challenge.
I have never seen the BEI report. We have never seen it. We are told we're not even going to be able to access it because it's their material, it's their report. Like, we don't know who they interviewed, we don't know what evidence they collected, we don't know any of that. We also have never seen the coroner's report.
According to the Crown, the post-mortem does not mention that Chantel had marks on her or a broken leg.
So all we have is the legal opinion that talks about 4 bullets that entered her body. And so that was, very startling to us because, the mother had seen the body.
It's always going to be his word against hers because she's not here to say what happened.
We know from the witnesses and from him, they looked all over the place for the knife. And so when they took the knife and had it analyzed for fingerprints, they did some kind of digital testing and they could tell there was kind of 3, but they couldn't tell whose they were.
According to the Crown, the forensic examination of the knife found fingerprints consistent with someone possibly holding the knife in his or her right hand. Although, quote, the prints lacked sufficient distinct characteristics to relate to a specific individual. In his interview, the officer who shot Chantel said the knife was in her left hand.
Yeah, the knife part too, it says in there she was holding the knife in her left hand. She is a right-handed.
After reviewing the BEI investigation, the Crown concluded that the officer had to react quickly to protect himself, and that Chantel's death was a result of her being severely impaired by alcohol, and combined with her actions, specifically exiting her residence brandishing a knife, steadily advancing upon Officer 1, who was restricted in movement by the confined space of the 3rd floor balcony, and not responding to his clear orders to drop the knife.
They really wanted to downplay the wellness check part of it and trying to make her into something a criminal or, it's her fault.
Even if she was under the influence of alcohol, I don't think it would have been any kind of factor whatsoever to do what they did to her.
Citing Chantel's medical history, the Crown says she had attempted suicide twice.
They went back a few years on Chantel's life, and in there it's saying that she jumped out a window. She was trying to commit suicide in Surrey. I was there. She did not try to commit suicide. She just didn't realize how high it was. She was wanting to go be with her boyfriend.
The idea is they were building it up. They're trying to frame her state of mind.
The Crown mentions a text message that Chantel sent that night to a friend. Nobody wants me. Why not just die alone now? But another friend who was with Chantel said, on the night and early morning hours of June 3rd and 4th, 2020, she was in a good mood.
For her no, she was in a great spot. None of that had played into the situation at all, because mentally she was stable, she was moving forward, she was setting goals.
Coming up, Chantel's family hopes she did not die in vain. In June 2021, New Brunswick's Public Prosecution Services announced that no criminal charges would be laid against the police officer who shot and killed Chantel Moore, saying his force was justified. The office declined our request for an interview and says it will not comment because, quote, the investigation is closed and the decision has been released. We also reached out to Constable Jeremy's son for comment. He did not respond. And the Edmundston Police Force says it will not comment at this time, quote, since there are several legal proceedings in the works. A coroner's inquest has been called into Chantel's death. It's set to start on December 6, 2021, and will give a jury the chance to make recommendations aimed at preventing deaths under similar circumstances. But the coroner service emphasizes that it will not make any finding of legal responsibility, nor will it assign blame. As Chantel's family and friends continue to fight for answers, they mourn her death, trying to remain hopeful that Chantel hasn't died in vain. We now return to the conclusion of Remember Her Name, Chantel Moore.
Natil Stlu, wa Modit Hakwar, Chantel, Pay, Taxid Pay. I was just saying that I was remembering Chantel and the person that she was. Remembering Chantel as a very happy, friendly individual in our family.
They took her away from her daughter, and that hurt.
You want to make a wish together?
Oh, Gracie. It breaks my heart for her. You know, she was just got her mom back.
So, this is my daughter, and it says engraved on it, Chantel Moore, Mommy loves you always. We had a teddy bear with her mom's ashes in it, and she sleeps with that every night in her bed.
This is Mommy.
They had a really good bond.
Yep, 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 yep. Yep, 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 yep. And 2. And there's a double one too. I mean, not a double.
What are you drawing, babe?
I'm doing Neon Cat.
Neon Cat.
Neon Cat is the best. She flies in the skies.
She'd paint with her, she'd get down on the ground with her, do chalk art with her. Out on the ground, I have pictures of that when she would go out and play with the chalk with her daughter.
Mom, me, and see you, Mama.
You and your mom.
Mama, be more.
Would be me, and this one here is Gracie, and this one here would be my daughter with the stay golden, and then the little ribbon symbolizes the suicide awareness. It's not easy, you know, and you're trying to compose yourself and keep yourself together while raising a little girl is so hard, because not only did I lose my daughter on June 4th, I lost my son to suicide on November 13th. Chantal is a little girl. When her brother was born, right from the beginning, like she always took him as her baby. He was no longer my baby. She took that role as a big sister and she ran with it. So I'm grieving the loss of my son, my daughter.
It just breaks my heart to hear a little girl talking like this. My mommy, they shot my mommy. Why did they shoot my mommy? And it's really hard to hear that. I always say to my daughter, like, I don't know what else to say to you anymore. You know, we FaceTime a lot, and I just keep saying, I love you, I love you. And the same to Gracie.
We had just started the rows to put vegetables. Trying to keep myself together for Gracie, because she deserves the best possible life. And if that means just getting up every morning and putting one foot in front of the other, then that's what I'll do for her. And, you know, try to make change so that she doesn't have to live in fear. That's what I'm going to do.
Chantal didn't die in vain. Her life passing is going to make a mark on this world. Her daughter's going to see what's happening, and she's going to become more of a powerful person for that. And we will find out the truth. Stay golden.
Chantel's family is calling for a public inquiry and fighting for changes to policing. The family is no closer to learning who was responsible for sending those threatening messages using Chantel's phone, or who may have been following her. But together, they remain strong and determined, and they remember Chantel. I'm Anthony Robart. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat. Want more episodes of Crime Beat? Listen to the Crime Beat podcast now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And for past episodes of Crime Beat, check out our YouTube page or download the Global Go app to watch on your phone.